They never meant for you to hear this. Not because it would offend, but because it would awaken. Because this is the kind of truth that doesn't just change your mind, it detonates your limits. It burns down the prison you didn't even know you lived in. The thoroughly powerful, they don't fear protest. They don't fear rebellion. They fear realization. The moment when the average man remembers he was never meant to be average. That's what they've tried to bury. That's the message they paid to hide. You were not born to survive. You were not built to scrape by. You are not here to chase money like a dog chasing cars. You were born to command. You were created to direct the flow of life with precision. But instead you were trained to wait, trained to hope, trained to say maybe one day, trained to believe that wealth is given to the chosen, when the truth is you must choose yourself. Every excuse you've ever made about the economy, about your job, about your family, about your upbringing was not the cause of your lack. It was the cover for it. You are not poor because of your conditions. You are poor because of your conclusions. You concluded that you're limited. You accepted that your ceiling was fixed. But no one told you that the ceiling was imaginary, drawn with the pencil of doubt and signed with the ink of hesitation. The system has programmed you with false humility. It trained you to believe that greatness is arrogance, that wealth is greed, that asking for more is selfish. And so you've been walking in circles, waiting for permission to become the version of you that already exists in the shadows of your own imagination. But today, that version steps into the light. You do not need another motivational quote. You need to remember the laws that govern wealth. Not the laws of taxes or inheritance or wages, the eternal laws. The ones that answer not to effort, but to identity. The ones that bend only for the man who decides. Let this be burned into your soul. Riches do not begin with effort. They begin with clarity, with decision, with a mental declaration so powerful that even the unseen forces of this world are forced to listen. Until you understand that, you will keep working harder and harder while earning less and less. Because effort without direction is motion without progress. It's the treadmill of poverty, and the belt never stops. They told you to work harder, but they never told you how to think. They gave you a job, but no vision, a wage, but no aim, a schedule, but no identity. And so you became a wanderer, a man clocking in for someone else's dream, hoping that a raise would feel like freedom. But money never follows hope. It follows order, and order starts with you. You must become a man of command, not command over people, command over yourself, over your thoughts, over your rhythm, over the invisible field of ideas that live inside your mind. The wealthy don't chase money. They attract it, and they attract it because they are magnetic, and they are magnetic because they are definite, definite in aim, definite in belief, definite in who they are. The man who attracts wealth doesn't wait for clarity, he issues it. He doesn't tiptoe into opportunity. He builds the road beneath his feet with every step. He does not say, I hope. He says, I will. He does not say, I need. He says, I command. There is no magic in wealth, but there is law. And law responds to belief like a seed responds to sunlight. You do not water it once and expect fruit. You do not affirm once and expect miracles. You must plant belief and water it with repetition until your subconscious no longer remembers lack. Seek this, until your bones believe it. I am not a beggar of life. I am a builder. I do not ask for riches. I magnetize them. I do not wish, I instruct. I do not survive. I command. The reason your results feel random is because your identity has been random. One day you believe The next day you doubt. One morning you move. The next you hesitate. But money punishes hesitation. It doesn't respond to the man who's half sure. It waits for the man who walks like the result is inevitable. You've asked for advice. You've searched for motivation, but none of that matters if your decision is still negotiable. The man who builds riches doesn't build them by being certain in emotion. He builds them by being certain in identity. He repeats truth until it becomes instinct. He commands his environment by commanding his inner world. You must write your chief aim. Not tomorrow, not after breakfast, not when you feel ready. Now. And it must be exact. Not I want to be rich. No. Say I will earn $500,000 by this date, through this method in exchange for this value, and then speak it aloud until the words no longer feel foreign, until they belong to you more than your last name, until doubt becomes the stranger and faith becomes the rhythm. This is the truth they don't want you to know, that wealth doesn't begin with hustle. It begins with identity. And identity is not a reflection. It is a construction. It is not inherited. It is built. And you build it every time you speak with fire, act with direction, and choose obedience over comfort. You were not born poor. You were born programmable. And someone got to you first. But today you take the program back. Today you stop speaking like a man who needs permission and start declaring like a man who owns the ground he walks on. Seek this now. I was not born for crumbs. I was born to command overflow. I do not drift. I direct. I do not wait. I decide. I do not plead. I program. And every time you say it, every time you write it, every time you act in alignment with it, the universe listens. Not because you're special, but because you're aligned. And law only rewards alignment. Not noise. Not effort. Not emotion. You were trained to work. Now you must train to command. Because the difference between exhaustion and empire is not found in the number of hours. It's found in the structure of thought. You've been told your whole life to grind, to hustle, to outwork the competition. And yes, effort has its place. But without intelligent design, without a clear chief aim, without leverage, effort becomes a prison. The man who breaks his back with labor but never aligns with law will live tired but never rich. You were not meant to earn through fatigue. You were meant to create through clarity, to multiply through focus, to dominate through exactness. And the only way to do that is to stop being busy and start being precise. You want proof? Look around. The men with wealth are not always the ones who sweat the most. They are not always the fastest, the strongest, or even the smartest. They are the ones who made a decision and never looked back. The ones who built a system, not just a schedule. The ones who asked what creates the greatest result with the least resistance. And then aligned every hour of their day around that answer. And while you were distracted by struggle, they were practicing stillness. While you were chasing 10 things, they were mastering one. While you were asking for signs, they became the sign. They do not move for applause, they move with instruction. And the world bends not to the loudest voice, but to the clearest one. That's why you must stop scattering your attention. Stop negotiating with distractions. Stop arguing with your own potential. You don't need more time, you need tighter focus. The man who multiplies his effectiveness does not do more. He becomes more exact in vision, more intentional in movement, more obedient to the aim he declared. Ask yourself right now, not next week, what am I building? Who am I becoming? And does every action I take today reflect that man? Because every time you scroll, stall, or doubt, you are not simply wasting time. You are broadcasting uncertainty, and wealth never follows uncertainty. It flees from it. You must begin to move like a man who cannot fail. Not because failure isn't possible, but because faith won't allow it. That is the mental posture of the wealthy. They don't ask the world for reassurance. They become the reassurance. They don't ask, is it possible? They ask, how can I make it inevitable? Write this down and burn it into your bloodstream. Decision plus clarity plus daily movement equals wealth, not maybe, not someday. Law does not negotiate. It only obeys instruction. And instruction comes from identity, not from emotion. If you're still waiting to feel ready, understand this. Readiness is a lie. It is the excuse of the undecided. It is the delay tactic of the poor. You don't wait for clarity to move. You move and clarity follows. Henry Ford did not wait for everyone to believe. He told his engineers to build what they swore could not be built. And when they said again that it was impossible, he repeated one phrase, build it anyway. That is decision. That is dominance. That is the fire the world follows. And what about you? How many ideas have died in your notebook because you waited for permission? How many dreams have evaporated because you needed everyone to approve before you acted? You must become a man who decides daily, habitually, permanently, because if you don't, you'll always be the man who almost started. And there is no wealth in almost. The man who begins before he feels ready always wins over the man who waits for confidence, because confidence is not a starting point. It is a consequence. You act first. You believe later. You move now. And the belief will catch up to the motion you've chosen. Repeat this with conviction. I am decisive. I move without fear. My action is my permission. My motion is my message. Wealth responds to my certainty. You don't rise by wondering. You rise by structuring. Every dollar you desire already exists in the economy. It is not waiting to be invented. It is waiting to be claimed. But only by the man who moves with order. And order is not about perfection. It is about alignment. You've been told that hard work will save you, but if that were true, the hardest working men would be the richest, and they are not, because hard work without direction is just self-inflicted exhaustion. Sweat without structure is slavery. Andrew Carnegie didn't build his empire by moving faster. He built it by thinking clearer, by delegating, by organizing, by understanding that wealth doesn't come to the man who moves the most, but to the man who thinks the best. Let that sink into your marrow. Motion is not wealth, precision, and the man who multiplies his knowledge and directs it with focus will always outrun the man who swings blindly with good intentions. So stop saying, I'm busy. That is not a badge. That is a symptom of drift. Replace it with, I am focused. I am exact. I am leverage. Repeat this daily until your subconscious forgets what it means to hustle without direction. I trade value, not time. I command wealth through clarity. My thoughts are currency. My focus is power. My action is law. You were taught to seek permission. Now you must become the authority. You were trained to survive. Now you must train to multiply. Because the field is full of men who die exhausted and broke, not because they lacked effort, but because they lacked alignment with the laws that create wealth. This is not injustice. This is not luck. This is law. And the law does not care how hard you work. It cares how clearly you think. It cares what you decide. It cares what you repeat. And it rewards the man who obeys it with structure, not struggle. So fix your attention. Choose your aim. Move with strategy. And begin to construct a life that no longer reflects survival, but radiates dominion. You must understand something the average man refuses to see. Your mind is not a mirror. It's a magnet. It does not reflect reality. It attracts whatever you hold with consistency and clarity in thought, with enough emotional weight, will move toward you, not by magic, but by law. That's why you must protect your mind like a vault. Every random distraction, every idle scroll, every conversation soaked in mediocrity, They are not harmless. They are infections. They steal your clarity, blur your vision, dilute your rhythm. Because what you repeat, you become. And if you repeat scattered thoughts, you live a scattered life. If you repeat doubt, you build delay. But if you repeat belief with fire, with structure, with discipline, you create a mental ecosystem that money can't resist. You must take command of this internal system, because your mind is the only real estate where wealth is born, not in banks, not in stocks, in the silent, invisible space between your ears, where belief takes root and identity is shaped. This is why auto-suggestion is not just a technique. It is a sacred ritual. It is not mere positive thinking. It is lawful reprogramming. Every time you say, "I am becoming rich," your subconscious listens. Every time you say, "I command my value," the wiring changes. And every time you repeat your chief aim with clarity, with emotional weight, the universe begins reordering itself to fit your image. Say it again. I do not ask for wealth. I command it by who I become. I obey my aim. I live in purpose. I walk in overflow. This is not fantasy. This is the rhythm of the Vira, the rhythm they hope you never discover. Because once you understand that you were never meant to be a worker, never meant to wait for wages, never meant to play by rules designed for your obedience, suddenly you're no longer a player on the board. You are the one designing the game. But for that to happen, you must delete every trace of poverty from your programming. Every thought that says, "I can't afford that." Every phrase like, "People like us don't get rich." Every passive acceptance of your current condition. Burn it, replace it, overwrite it with precision. Poverty is not an empty wallet. It's a limited mind. It's not about zeros on a statement. It's about the image you carry of yourself. And here is the brutal truth. You will never out-earn your identity. You can grind, you can hustle, you can chase opportunities until your legs give out. But if the man inside still sees himself as a struggler, the world will obey that image. It will return your internal story in external form. So change the story. You are not a man trying to escape lack. You are a man aligned with overflow. You are not a man begging for the door to open. You are the door, and wealth walks through you, because you are the passage between idea and reality. Speak like it, move like it, dress like it, decide like it. Because if you speak with power but move with fear, your mind will trust the movement, not the words. The subconscious does not obey your wishes, it obeys your rhythm. So fix your rhythm. Declare every morning before the world interrupts you, "I am the builder of wealth. I am trusted with riches. I move with purpose. I think in systems. I live in order." Not to sound good, not to impress your reflection, but because these words are instructions, not suggestions. You are not speaking to the world. You are programming the engineer inside you. And the more often he hears the same command, the more precise he becomes, until you're no longer trying to be rich. You're simply becoming who you were always meant to be. And now look around. Ask yourself, who surrounds me? What voices do I let shape my environment? Because you will never grow beyond the identity of your circle. If you surround yourself with drifters, you will drift. If you walk among the small-minded, you will start to shrink. But if you place yourself near men who command, who don't flinch at goals, who speak with precision, who execute with law, their rhythm becomes yours. This is the power of the mastermind. One conversation with a man of purpose is worth more than a decade of idle encouragement. One encounter with someone who refuses to tolerate your excuses can reroute your entire future. So audit your environment. Refuse the mediocre. Reject the casual. Invite the precise. And let those men become your mirrors and your multipliers. Repeat this now, not softly, but with absolute conviction. I do not visit wealth. I live in it. I belong to it. I do not pretend to be rich. I become rich by becoming a new man. Every thought builds the man. Every man attracts the life. These are not empty words. They are construction orders for the empire you are now required to build. Because the law does not obey the man who dabbles. It obeys the man who becomes definite. And once you're definite, in thought, in movement, in identity, Wealth will no longer be something you chase. It will be something you host, something you command, something that recognizes you as its rightful home. Because the truth is this: you were never unworthy. You were simply undecided. Let this truth sink in so deep, it reorders your blood. You will never hold what you have not yet become. The man who stumbles into riches without identity will lose them faster than he found them. That's why lottery winners return to poverty. Their bank accounts change, but their internal image remains broke. Because the mind governs the money. The man governs the fortune not by effort but by alignment. So if you want your wealth to last, you must first make it law in your identity. You must build the inner container strong enough to hold the blessing, and that container is constructed from belief, decision, repetition, and obedience. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. There is only law. You cannot build an empire with the mindset of a survivor. You cannot expect overflow with the voice of a man who's still trying not to drown. The man who commands riches does not whisper in hope. He speaks with dominion. That's why you must speak different, not as a man who's waiting, but as a man who's walking into a future he's already seen with the eyes of vision. And you must speak it even when no one else claps. When your account is still empty, when your business hasn't boomed, when your results are invisible, because that is the test, not of possibility, but of identity. The test is whether you will continue to act like the man you claim to be, even when reality hasn't caught up yet. This is the separation between the rich and the rest. The wealthy live from their future. The average man lives from his past. One remembers who he is becoming. The other remembers who he used to be. One moves forward without apology. The other moves cautiously, hoping not to lose what little he has. But faith never moves backward. Faith moves with fire. It doesn't wait for evidence. It becomes the evidence. This is the law that shapes nations and bends environments. Belief with discipline, and it obeys the man who lives in conviction, not convenience. Say it again until it lives in your bones. I am the builder of wealth. I do not survive. I command. I do not drift. I construct. I do not beg. I instruct. Understand this. Success is not given to the careful. It's delivered to the convicted. You don't win because you're safe. You win because you're certain. And when you act from that certainty, reality adjusts itself to accommodate your identity. This is not delusion. This is the alignment of law. Thomas Edison had no proof the light bulb would work. He had no applause, no roadmap. He had failure, 10,000 of them, but he kept moving. Not because he knew the exact step, but because he had the one thing most men never master, an unshakable belief that what he saw in his mind would one day exist in his hands. Do you believe like that? Have you written your vision? Do you hold it in your heart when no one else sees it? Do you build when others mock? Do you speak when others doubt? Because that's what separates you. That's what moves money toward you while others wonder why it avoids them. Money doesn't run from work. It runs from weakness. It doesn't avoid effort. It avoids indecision. So stop hesitating. Stop stalling. Stop asking the world to confirm what you already know inside. You don't need approval. You need alignment. And alignment begins with one declaration. I believe so fully my actions match my future. My mind magnetizes wealth through the strength of my belief. I do not hope. I know. I do not wait. I move. I do not doubt. I declare. These words are not decorations. They are bricks, and each time you speak them with emotion and action, you lay another piece of the road to riches. Every thought is a blueprint. Every movement is construction. Every repetition is reinforcement. That is how you build a fortune, not by guessing, not by wishing, but by installing a rhythm of wealth into your nervous system. So repeat your aim daily. Speak your affirmations daily. Move toward your vision daily. Not until it's convenient, until it's instinct. You must stop treating success like a visitor. It cannot be visited. It must be lived in. You must breathe wealth, think wealth, walk wealth, until your subconscious can no longer accept lack as an option. That's when the shift happened. Not because you did something different, but because you became someone different. You cannot rise with the same beliefs that kept you grounded. You cannot command millions with the same habits that created struggle. You cannot step into overflow if your inner thermostat is still set to scarcity. So raise the setting, upgrade the default, recode the image, and that begins every morning before the world distracts you, before doubt wakes up, before delay enters your bloodstream. You wake up and declare, I am not the man I was. I am not the beggar. I am the builder. I am trusted with riches. I create value with precision. I move with finality. I act with obedience to my vision. Speak it until it becomes memory, until it feels like breathing, until your cells forget what it means to play small, and then act like that man. Not once, not when it's easy, every day, especially when it's hard, especially when it's silent, especially when the mirror still shows shadows of the old you. You act from the new you anyway, because wealth doesn't come to the man who waits to feel ready. It comes to the man who acts until he becomes ready. That's what the world fears most. The man who acts like his future is non-negotiable, and now that man is you. There is a reason why so few ever rise. It is not a lack of intelligence, not a lack of opportunity. It is a lack of obedience, not to others but to themselves, because obedience to vision is the difference between destiny fulfilled and a lifetime of wondering what could have been. And the man who becomes wealthy, he is not obedient some days. He is obedient every day. He does not show up when he feels motivated. He shows up because it's who he is. He doesn't wait for proof. He becomes the proof. That's the difference between a wish and a command. A wish waits for momentum. A command creates it. And you, if you want to rise, truly rise, must stop asking if you're doing enough. That's the wrong question. The question is, have I become the kind of man who finishes what he starts? Because the man who finishes is not the one with the best tools. He is the one who refuses to stop. Most men fall not because they failed, but because they paused, because they hesitated, because they entertained doubt for 1 second too long. And in that second, wealth changed direction. It turned toward the man who kept moving. Repeat this until it erases every excuse you've ever believed. I am a man who finishes. I do not ask for certainty. I decide and then I move. I do not need applause. I am my own momentum. I walk forward. I do not retreat. And from this rhythm, wealth is pulled. Not by begging, not by chance, but by law. Because here's what they didn't tell you. Money doesn't go to the strongest, the smartest, or even the most passionate. It goes to the most consistent, the one who doesn't flinch when the world doubts him, the one who does the same things over and over with obsessive faith until the result is forced to appear. That is the force of identity. That is what magnetizes outcomes. That is what moves heaven and earth to obey. You don't attract money by screaming louder. You attract it by becoming the kind of man money cannot ignore. You become still in decision, loud in belief, ruthless in follow-through. And when that identity takes over, everything changes. Your choices shift. Your energy shifts. Even your posture changes because your body starts to follow the commands of a reprogrammed mind. You no longer tolerate delay. You no longer entertain half-commitments. You no longer drift in the wind of other people's opinions. You become unshakable. Say it aloud, not quietly, not carefully, but with the kind of volume that shakes your history out of its place. I am unshakable. I am focused. I am already becoming the man who commands wealth. My vision is my instruction. My discipline is my weapon. My identity is my compass. And if those words feel foreign to you, good. That means the old identity is dying. That means the prison walls are cracking. That means your upgrade has already begun. Now you must live in that upgrade, not on Sundays, not when you're feeling it, every day, without break, without apology. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable, because your nervous system is still calibrated to the rhythm of survival. Your brain is still wired for caution. You've lived in defense for so long, offense feels unnatural. But wealth is not a reward for defense. It is a response to command. So command. Decide what you will build. Decide what value you will trade. Decide the number. Decide the time. Decide the structure. And then move in that direction like a man possessed. Not because you know every step, but because you refuse to stop walking. Write it down. I command value. I command clarity. I command attention. I do not explain my vision. I embody it. You must understand, money follows motion, not any motion. Decisive motion, final motion, motion with weight behind it. The kind of movement that tells the world, this is happening, with or without your approval. And when you move like that, the world stops doubting you. It starts mirroring you. People appear, opportunities open. Ideas flow, not because of coincidence, but because you became the signal. You became the lighthouse. You became the man who doesn't blink. And the law rewards that man, every time. So stop asking if this is the right time. It's not about time, it's about identity. And identity doesn't wait for green lights. It builds the road and dares the world to stop it. You are not here to be careful. You are here to become certain. And the moment you commit to that certainty, without conditions, without needing to feel ready, wealth starts to obey. This is the law of compensation. It is not philosophical. It is mechanical. You are either being compensated for your precision, or you are being punished for your hesitation. So choose. Right now, not tomorrow. Ask yourself, what have I postponed that should have been finished by now? Then go finish it. Not with anxiety, not with guilt, but with the full force of who you are becoming. Because the unfinished is where wealth leaks. Every delay is a drop lost. Every excuse is a hole in the bucket. And the man who plugs those holes with action, with faith, with movement, that man becomes the container for overflow. This is your truth now. I do not leave things undone. I do not apologize for movement. I do not fear decisions. I act from my future. I finish what I start. And when you speak like this, daily, habitually, with fire, you're no longer speaking into a void. You are issuing commands to your mind, to your body, to your future. And the more often you repeat them, the more that future becomes inevitable. Because repetition is not just reinforcement, it is rhythm. And rhythm is the heartbeat of law. You've been taught to value hard work, and that's fine. But no one ever told you that hard work without direction is glorified struggle. The world is full of exhausted men who wear their busyness like a badge while their bank accounts whisper the truth. Working more hours does not make you wealthier. Thinking with order does. Structure is not a suggestion. It is the bloodstream of success. The man who multiplies time, who multiplies income, who multiplies impact, is not the man who moves faster. He is the man who moves smarter, who directs his attention with surgical precision, who filters every thought through the question, does this build what I said I would build? That is the rhythm of the wealthy. And it's not a rhythm of chaos. It's a rhythm of command. You must stop measuring your worth by how much you sweat. Start measuring it by how clearly you think, how precisely you plan, how consistently you act, because it is not your energy that wealth responds to. It is your clarity. This is why men with less talent, less education, less advantage rise above you. Because while you debate, they decide. While you analyze, they act. While you wait for confidence, they build confidence through motion. Let this sting if it must, but let it wake you. Say it with full authority. I am done chasing validation. I am done outsourcing decisions. I am done confusing effort with effectiveness. I move with strategy. I multiply with precision. I create through design. And from this moment forward, that is how you operate. No more scattered mornings. No more open loops. No more mental clutter. You begin each day not with reaction but with intention. You already know what you're building. You already know what you're becoming. You don't need motivation. You need a checklist. and the discipline to complete it like your future depends on it, because it does. There is no success without attention, no wealth without direction, no dominion without obedience to rhythm. And this rhythm isn't complicated. It begins with one truth. Your mind is your capital, not your resume, not your savings account, not your background. Your capital is in your head. And how you manage that space determines everything. So manage it like a vault. Stop letting unqualified opinions rent space in your temple. Stop giving time to thoughts that don't build you. Stop entertaining fantasies of success while feeding your mind failure all day. You are either programming or being programmed. There is no neutral, so install the program deliberately. Write your aim, speak your affirmation, organize your plan, move daily, measure progress, eliminate distractions, protect your focus. Repeat the rhythm. Repeat it until even your doubts give up and fall asleep. Say this until it becomes your new breath. I do not trade time for money. I command money through value. I train my attention. I control my direction. I multiply my effectiveness. My mind is my capital. My value is unlimited. These are not just affirmations. They are instructions, issued directly to your subconscious, to your nervous system, to the deepest parts of you that still carry traces of poverty. And those parts will resist. They will whisper the old stories, the doubts, the delays, the lies. But repetition breaks resistance. Repetition rewires identity. Repetition is the weapon the wealthy use while others wait to feel ready. Understand this. Your income right now is not your ceiling. It's your reflection. A reflection of how clearly you've been thinking, how consistently you've been moving, how specifically you've been aiming. If you want more, you don't beg for more. You build for more, because the world does not reward tiredness. It rewards precision. It rewards alignment. It rewards identity. Every great fortune, every single one, was not built by hustle alone. It was built by thought applied with persistence, repeated, refined, reinforced. The average man chases effort. The rich man chases leverage. Leverage is the force multiplier of wealth. It is what turns one idea into a legacy. It is what turns one decision into 10 outcomes. And it begins with one question. What is the highest value use of my time right now? Ask that daily, hourly, ruthlessly. That question is your scalpel. It slices away the fluff, the waste, the filler. It reveals the real builders and exposes the drift. Because the man who builds empires is not always the busiest. He is the most intentional. Repeat this now, not because it sounds good, but because it builds who you are. I trade value, not time. I am intentional with every breath. I create through focus. I build with law. I rise by design. And once that becomes your daily rhythm, once your thoughts, your habits, your decisions all obey the same internal law, then you become unstoppable. Not because luck found you, but because you became the kind of man who cannot be ignored. Not by people, not by circumstances, not even by money. You do not chase riches. You host them. You create a space so ordered, so aligned, so locked in, that wealth has no choice but to live there. This is the truth the 0.1% protect, not with secrets, but with silence. They don't tell you that money is magnetized. That abundance is a consequence of mental law, not manual labor. That the real battle isn't on the outside, it's in the invisible rhythm of your mind. And today you've entered that battle, not with fear, but with fire. You are not a man hoping to rise. You are a man who has already decided. This world does not move for the hopeful. It moves for the committed, for the man whose words are law, whose habits are sacred, whose self-image is bulletproof. Understand this. Riches do not fall from the sky. They are not earned by accident. They are not gifted to the lucky. They are created by law, spiritual, mental, mechanical. And law obeys the man who obeys himself. There is no miracle in wealth, only alignment. So stop searching for magic. Stop waiting for moments. Stop asking for signs. You are the sign. You are the turning point. You are the command. Write it once more. Speak it like it's already yours. Not because you're tricking yourself, but because you're instructing the universe. The mind, the law. I command wealth by who I am becoming. I obey my chief aim. I multiply value. I rise with repetition. I move with certainty. I do not hesitate. I do not retreat. I do not negotiate with smallness. This is the man the world listens to. This is the man money follows. This is the man that builds what others only dream. And now, the laws, remember them not as theory, but as your code. Law 1, definite chief aim. Your success must begin with clarity. A written, repeated, emotionally charged vision of who you are becoming. What you will earn, what you will give, and when it will be done. This is the root of all riches. Without it, you drift. With it, you command. Law 2, repetition. What you repeat, you install. What you install, you become. No man ever built wealth by speaking truth once. He becomes it by drilling belief into the deepest parts of himself until his body forgets how to hesitate. Law 3, cosmic habit force. Rhythm creates reality. Identity is not built in inspiration. It is built in rhythm, in habit, in thought, in daily reinforcement. Your mind becomes automatic, and what's automatic becomes law. Law 4, identity. You do not rise above your image. You become what you repeatedly believe about yourself. If your internal picture is broke, no external deposit can save you. Identity governs income. Change the image. Change the bank. Law 5, obedience. Wealth flows to the man who obeys law. Obedience is not weakness. It is power. To follow your aim with discipline. To follow your words with action. To follow your belief with structure. This is the bridge between vision and reality. Now understand this final truth. What you obey multiplies. If you obey fear, fear multiplies. If you obey doubt, doubt expands. But if you obey clarity, command, vision, then wealth, peace, purpose, and dominion multiply too. You were never born for scraps. You were not made to bow. You were not placed here to survive paycheck to paycheck, chasing pennies while your potential waits behind the curtain of hesitation. You were born to command, but you will never command with part-time belief. You will never rise with casual commitment. You will never overflow with negotiable discipline. Only the obedient shall walk in dominion. So I ask you plainly, do you remember who you are? Have you written your aim? Do you speak it aloud morning and night? Do you obey it with daily movement? Do you walk as the man who's already trusted with riches? Or have you just listened once, nodded in agreement, and returned to the rhythm that's kept you small? Because the law does not reward inspiration. It rewards transformation. Write this, not as theory, not as motivation, but as your declaration of finality. I do not ask for wealth. I command it by who I become. I obey my aim. I live in purpose. I walk in overflow. I am the man infinite intelligence trusts with riches, because I obey the law. And let this final charge burn into your DNA. You are either drifting or obeying. There is no middle ground. If you are not repeating truth, you are repeating mediocrity. If you are not moving forward, you are surrendering backward. If you are not aligned with law, you are aligned with lack. Wealth is a law, not a miracle. Poverty is a rhythm, not a curse. Faith is movement, not emotion. And repetition is transformation, not inspiration. From this day forward, burn this into your soul. This is the day I delete every trace of poverty. I think in riches. I act in riches. I speak in riches. I command my mind to obey wealth. No more wishing. No more waiting. No more wandering. You are the 0.1% now. The rest will wonder what happened. You'll remember exactly how it was done.